right?
Thank you, Thomas. It's great to be here.
Yeah, without further ado, I'm not going to take any more of your time.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, I'm pushing you off. No introductions. First of all, it is great to be here. I don't get out of the Y environment much, so I feel like I'm outside. It is interesting. So Thomas, right, he gives me these, I start getting these emails a few weeks ago about Monday brown bag. And in my head, I'm thinking, am I supposed to come Monday? You know, like I'm getting these Mondays, but really it was subliminal reinforcement to let me know that I'm here today. So it worked on me. But it reminded me of, so when I was a kid living in New York City, my family would go down to Miami Beach. We would drive down to Miami Beach for the summer for a few weeks. And so you're driving down and there's these signs that you start to see, south of the border is coming. South of the border is coming. I mean, if this is 1,000 miles in advance, they're telling you you're approaching south of the border. You get closer and closer and the signs become closer to each other and you're thinking, I'm excited, what's happening? You get there, it's this little rickety-rackety, it's basically a tourist trap. But what a great marketing plan, right? You can't wait to get there for 1,500 miles. And you get there, it's nothing. Good marketing though, right? That's how it felt with the emails. Weeks in advance, I'm getting these brown bag reminders and to remind me that I'm gonna be here today. But it is great to be here. I have been with the Y for 34 years. That is momentous to me because I thought it was gonna be 1 year and I was heading back to New York. But I fell in love with the experience. These guys, Tim Daly and I go way back, and he brought his entourage because he thought that there would be no one here. So he was my moral support. So thanks you guys for at least being there when I needed you. So, but I am excited. And I was thinking Thomas did talk about the mission part of the Y, and I was going to take a shot on an angle for you guys. And I'm going to share, I like to share first person. So it's not like I'm talking about myself, but I'm talking about the experience, about what we've gone through as an organization, because it's been pretty significant, really. I started here in '83 when we opened the Tacoma Center, and so I would say up to 2004, you know, we were mission focused. Everybody in the Y was into delivering and impacting people's lives. And then we got a new CEO right before me, 2004, and he came in and realized what we needed, which was really interesting because at that time, the most popular book in YMCA's was Good to Great. Has anybody heard of that book? It was considered the Bible for YMCA's and for actually people in business, because it was a guy named Jim Collins who was a professor at Stanford, and he studied why companies were successful. And see, the reason it was relevant to YMCA's is because a lot of YMCA's are really good at mission, but maybe challenged with how to be effective from a business standpoint. And see, even though we're nonprofit and we're trying to, our work is to impact people's lives, you still have to run a business. And you still have to have the resources to fund the mission. So you got to be good at that. But, YMCA people like myself, I would say, I was into the people part. And if I was good at that, the business would take care of itself, was my mentality. But it's a little more than that. It's a little more complex, right? And so he came in, my boss at the time, and he really introduced that concept. And I'll tell you, we took off. We took off. And I would say, right, we took off because we started implementing these practices. So, for example, right, we would just, like I said, be good about impacting people's lives. But all of a sudden, we started saying, what's the real truth? What are the brutal facts, right? And Jim Collins says that if you're going to be a good business, you better face the brutal facts. What does that mean, right? What do you think that means? Anybody, how do you determine the brutal facts?
Think you're going to fail?
Potentially, right? You always play to that, right? You don't want to get complacent. You don't want to think you got it all figured out. And I think we were like that in the Y. We kind of figured we were good at taking care of people. What else would you say about facing the brutal facts?
Realizing you're not good at everything.
Right, same kind of thing, right? Not great at everything. I'll jump in with what I was trying to get at, right, is one of the things is we started to listen to the people, right? You have the members, you have the community tell you the truth, right? Because you can come in, your staff can look at it and say, hey, we're good, right? We're good, we got it figured out. But when you start listening to what people tell you, who you're serving, like I may have a different opinion than these guys right here, but they're using the why, they're engaged in the why. But facing the brutal facts, and what we started doing surveys of members, but the third party did a survey, because if we do it, people will say, well, we're gonna give you what we think you want us to know. But we start paying for someone to do a survey on a monthly basis. Changed the game. Changed the game. We start going, whoa, we're not that good. And we started making changes to make us better. And that really worked. And it's something called the Net Promoter Score. It sounds really, it's funny. A guy wrote a book and said, the #1 factor in member or customer service is if someone will recommend you to their friend. #1. Now companies use it all over the country, all over the world, because they say, wow, if you recommend it, then it must be good, and that's how you feel. And so we did that. The other thing that we started to do is we added accountability, which we never did. And my boss was really big on this. So it's kind of related to the brutal facts, is if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And that sounds funny, right? Because the why, we were just all into just how we felt, and it was good, it was fun, but we didn't necessarily hold ourselves accountable to delivering on our promises. And that's related to the brutal facts. So if our members are saying something, we started adding accountability and delivering. And again, the results were extraordinary. Now, when I say extraordinary, let me give you a sense of that. In 2004, we had 37,000 members that we were serving. That sounds good, right? 37,000 people. Today, we're serving 130,000. And we actually serve an outreach of 40 more thousand. So 170,000 people we serve. But in 2004, it was 37,000.
Is this in Pierce County?
Pierce and Kitsap. So we expanded, right? So there was expansion. But the reason we were able to expand is because people knew that we could deliver, because we were delivering on our promises. So people have wanted to be part of that. They said they trusted us all of a sudden, and that was different. The other thing we did is Jim Collins talks about the hedgehog principle, right? Does anybody know what that is? Does anybody know what a hedgehog is? Because I didn't. Well, anyway, it's irrelevant to this complex, you know. But the hedgehog, which is really cool, because he says 3 things have to be in place for you to be great at something. 1, you have to have the passion for what you're doing. You got to believe that you're going to be, you're delivering something that is in your heart, and you're going to be great at it. So that's something I think we were great at. I think we were great at that from day one, because people who work at the Y, they want to be there. They want to make a difference in someone's life. But that's not the only, there are 2 other. Second, you've got to be the best at the world at that. Now that sounds grandiose, right? That's pretty boastful. But meaning that it's something that you can hone in on and invest in and be great at. So something that the Y is really great at is swim lessons for kids. There's not a lot of people that are delivering swim lessons. Emily, we're pretty good. You learned to swim at the Y? Emily, I knew that. That's why. That was a rigged deck. I knew Emily. Everybody swims in her family, right? But we're great at swim lessons. The danger in the Y is we try to be everything to everybody, right? We try to offer a lot of services, and that gets us in trouble, because we, in the people business, and so that's a tricky thing. And so something that we're actually dealing with, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but is that we have to really hone in and not try to do that. It's a tricky thing to do in a nonprofit people service organization, because you're always wanting to meet needs. And so you do a lot of things maybe you're not the best at the world or not great at all. And the third thing is that it drives your economic engine. Meaning you're passionate, you're the best in the world, and it drives your economic engine. When those 3 things intersect, you've got something special. And that's something we really tried to focus in on. And so again, this is where our model is a little different in our why. We have what you call all-inclusive. It's not perfect when I say that, meaning we still have fees sometimes, but all-inclusive is some for-profit organizations that offer, they do a la carte. So they charge you for swim lessons, they charge you for an exercise class, they charge you for this. We wrap it into your membership fee and say, so that you just come in, pay your membership fee, and that's how it works. But again, as you assess some of our additional fees, we get ourselves in trouble, but I'm not going to assume that. But our economic engine is membership. And so we tried, when Bob, my boss, came to town, we adopted that mentality, face the brutal facts, and develop this hedgehog mentality of what are we going to be the best at the world at. And it changed our focus. We've got great, and some of this growth that I just told you about, we took off. And then we took it, we added another element that Jim Collins talks about. And this is where it really messed with our minds. Because the why is so compassionate, right? We live the mission in our work. But it said that you had to develop a discipline about who's on the bus. Has anybody heard that phrase, who's on the bus? Getting the right person on the bus? Anybody? That's a tough one, right? Because what Jim Collins says, it's all about who you have on your team. And what is your discipline about having the right person on the bus? Well, what's difficult for the why is because we're so mission-driven, we believe in people, we believe in 30 years this person will be the right person. Sometimes we stay with a person too long, and we try to nurture them and nurture them. Well, we got disciplined, and it really was difficult, and it still is, because people don't want to give up on each other, and it's hard to let a person go or hold them accountable. But to be successful, you have to have that discipline. So you get in the picture, right? So here's this YMCA, Pearson Kitsap County, mission-driven, loving people, implementing a whole different framework about business and about being disciplined and accountable and getting the right people on the bus and getting them off the bus if they're not the right person. That was a new way of work for us, but it really worked. It took us to a whole different level. And like Lisa said, we grew. We went from 4 branches in the whole organization, and we have 12 branches now because people believe we can deliver on our promises. Well, here's the downside. So I just came from a conference with Tim, Father Daly. This is Father Daly, by the way. Anyway, we went to a conference, and I don't know if you picked up on this, Tim, but he said at one point, Terry Stokesbury said, that mission-driven organizations have to remember they're mission-driven organizations first. See, when we adopted the good to great model, we started to say, well, we're mission-driven, but we're going to run this as a business too. And we started to try to balance these two things. And you could see the confusion that staff would have. I don't know if you felt that, Emily. We were trying to be this business, but we were mission. And it's not, maybe it wasn't as apparent, but I always felt like it was a paradox for me, you know, because I was like, no, we're going to care about people. I will forget about the business. But it was challenging. And I would say that the mission part took a back seat. I would say that the mission started to become second in the formula. And I think we lost our way a little. And, you know, I don't know how that felt, Tim, but he's on the board. He's my boss, actually, so I can't lie today. But I felt like we went very far to accountability, and it became about the bottom line. How many dollars we were raising, how much, you know, the whole commitment to a successful business, which worked to some extent. But I think as a mission-driven organization, you can never lose sight of that. That is who we are, and first and foremost. What does that say? What did I say to you guys just now? What do you think? I want to hear if it came out right. Does anybody? Go ahead. Anybody? Yeah, I mean, does anybody relate to any part of that?
I can relate because as a Y member, when this all happened, I felt it was about the money more than the people. Because then it was like, yes, I was volunteering, then finding out that I didn't have any money, so we don't want you on the board now. That's how I felt, because, we don't want your times and treasure, your talents anymore, we want your treasures. That's how I felt,
Tim?
honestly.
I'm putting Tim on the spot here.
I think the two components have to work hand in hand. And I don't think you can let the economic driver, that economic engine surpass what that mission is. But, I come from probably a little bit more from the business side of things, Charlie, in that regard. And I recognize you're not going to have a mission if you don't have an economic driver that's going to carry you on.
That's right.
And so I don't ever want to discount the importance of what that economic driver is to the concept of we are going to deliver our mission, but we have to have both there. And I don't want the economic driver to be in the front seat. It is in the back seat, but it is critical so that the driver, the mission, is able to drive. If you don't have the economic influence, the economic stability that is there, that has to be there to move the mission forward.
I agree. It's a tough, so you can see, right?
It's a balance.
It's totally, and it's tough. Emily, you want to take a shot? Emily worked for the Y,
Yeah, and I worked for the Y right as that CEO came in, so we came in at the same time. And so my experience was a lot of things were put into place, like staff uniforms and wearing a name tag, and like the elements that made the branches really run and shine. And that was what I knew from my employment at the Y. So I was only under that economic driver of a leader. So I understand the mission, and there was a fine balance there. You do have to have the right people that have the right characteristics and morals to be working there. That's stuff that's taken into consideration during hiring.
That's great. Thanks, you guys, for contributing. I think the reality is that it's not an easy balance. And so I'm going to shift now to how I've been in the role actually less than a year. And though I've worked for this Y a long time, and appreciated what my boss, the previous CEO, brought to our organization, because it gave me real insight into what is necessary, like Emily said, and Tim, the necessity of a disciplined practice, a disciplined commitment to the business, I call it, but never losing sight of who we are. And so I've come in, and so this is transparency right now. And it is a difficult one, because here's one thing that's happened, is that the behavior of the staff didn't just change like that. It's not like you put a switch on and everybody is not living in this world of accountability and bottom line commitment, because here's what we did. And it sounded like genius, and it probably still has merit to it. I think, I'm just trying to, we're trying to figure it out, is that we tied performance and merit raise to the same. So so how you got your merit raise was tied to your performance. And so your measurement, we tried to make it very objective. This was a game changer, right? It sounds cool, doesn't it? Because what it was like before Bob came, was that it became a subjective measurement, and people gave you a raise because they liked you or they felt you were a good person. That didn't work. And so it really took away from people who are high achievers, and people didn't really want to be in the Y if they weren't getting rewarded for performance. So that was a big deal. And so I went for that, and I think it was really great, but then it became difficult to measure, to come up with measurements that were really influenced by your performance. That we came up with things like Net Promoter Score, or how long retention, what was your retention in your branch, and those are things that your work ends up there, but your actual work didn't necessarily, you couldn't see the correlation. Is that clear on that? It's called lead goals versus lag goals. So a lag goal is something that measures over time. The lead goal would be something that you can measure directly. There's this guy, I'm jumping now, so you guys got to hang in there. Hang in there, it's getting bumpy. So this, I like this guy called Chris McChesney. He works for the Franklin Covey Institute, and I got to hear him speak last year. The guy is dynamic, and he really gets into studying employee motivation, morale, performance, tying into a success of a company. And he's really studied this whole thing about lead and lag goals. And he gives this example of a rental car company. So he says this rental car company came up with a measurement of how long it takes a customer to get from signing up in their car and out. So the company was saying, we're going to focus on how many seconds it takes for a person to get in their car and get processed and just be successful in moving out of the parking lot. So they had 8 sites, and every site had a goal. And 7 of them were successful within tenths. They measured it to tenths of a second. That's how competitive they were. Except this one site. This one site was behind by like 20 seconds. Can you imagine that? That site was total low morale. And what happened was they realized there was a concrete wall that was a barrier to limiting the time it took, because they had to move cars in a line and get around this concrete wall. So he gives the example that this wouldn't fly today. This was years ago, that they came in on a Sunday night and removed the concrete wall so that they could win in the game. And so his conclusion is that you design, with input from the staff, goals that you can win, that stretch, but the design, he believes that an employee wants to win at what he does. Do you buy that? That you want to play a game that you can win at. So an employee will be motivated if their goals are something that they can influence and win it. So that's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to come up with goals that we can create that are winnable, but that stretch the staff. So the thing we're working on is so we know that, are you with me right now? Because I know I'm flying right now. So one of the things we look at is how often a person comes into the Y. How often do you guys come into the Y?
Yeah, Lisa.
I pass.
Lisa, hold it. But in Lisa's defense, she's running the marathon Saturday. So we don't have to worry about her.
Outside of the way.
Yeah. Terry?
Not that often,
3 times. That's average. That's above average, actually. Tim?
5 times.
5. Julie? 4. Emily? This is a quiz on them, by the way. 4. But the average, actually interesting, is 1.8 a week.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Lise.
I would say I've been a member of the Y probably for about 15 years, and I will never give up my membership, even if I'm not in the Y every single week.
See, that's a great story, and I'm going to get to that at the end, but that is a great story, because about what the Y is about. I love that. Thank you, Lise. But the average use of a person is 1.8 times a week. So a person used, those guys were all above average. So we have challenged each branch to raise their level of participation in their programs and their branch. And the reason is, if you can get a person to come in one more time a week, the opportunity to retain that person goes up by 20%. That's amazing, right? One more time a week, retention goes up by 20%. Well, it's still, right, it's only 1.8, so if you can get them to 2.8, right, it's low, but still, it's a significant impact. So the idea is, we're going to motivate, and the staff came up with this, that we're going to focus on getting members in one more time a week. And that's how we designed that as one of the goals. The other thing that we did, and this one is a little bit of a work in progress, is we're trying to flip the model. So we are mission driven. We focus on members, people in the community. That's our focus. But we're saying our number one goal is our staff. We're saying that our staff, we want the Y to be a destination for staff. So if you guys are looking for careers, the Y is a place for you. And the reason I say that is because I think we can make it. It doesn't have to be about teaching a class. It can be about IT. We just hired a vice president of IT. He starts next Wednesday. Can't wait. See, you could have had that. You could have, Zach, you could have had that job. Anyway, But there are other ways to have a career in the Y. We have total 2,300 staff who work for the Y. 350 are full-time. 350. And I consider myself kind of in addition to being a dinosaur, I've been in the Y 34 years because the journey has been unbelievable. I mean, every day I wake up and I'm on fire about the Y because I know the opportunities about impacting people's lives. So we're trying to shift that. I heard about this. Does anybody ever hear of the restaurant? Thanks, Lise.
Thank you.
Good luck on Saturday.
All right, thank you.
Did you ever hear of the restaurant, the Canless?
Yeah, yeah,
Have you guys been there?
just there.
Is it great?
Yeah.
It's not as great as I thought.
Oh, it's great, it's great.
Anyway, it's
Unbelievable service, unbelievable.
so the Canless restaurant, what I've read, and it's pretty, they're actually written about in books because the owners previously were the parents and they handed it to the kids and the kids shifted, they essentially flipped the focus to be about the staff. And they're trying to create this unbelievable staff experience. You said the service was phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
I heard the food was great, but I heard it cost an arm and a leg too. But they switched it. And I was curious about that. And I read these articles about them because what they said is that it wasn't as easy because people constantly think it's the outreach, it's the service that you focus on. But if you invest in staff, great staff will be driven to create this great service. So that's another one of our goals. So we're focused on increased use, quality staff experience. And the third goal, we only have 3 goals. And the third goal, Thomas and I were talking about this. Do they call you Thomas? Yep. Or sir? Do they call? That's Thomas. Anyway, is fundraising. And see, fundraising is a key part of the Y. It's a key part of any nonprofit. And the reason I say that, one, is that we have 2 things that are very unique in the Y. We have financial assistance, or some people call it scholarships. So over 40,000 people who use the Y annually get some form of subsidy, scholarship, complete subsidy to use the services of the Y. We have complete outreach that's free. Late night program that started in 1991, Phil Carter. Every Friday night in 9 branches, teens from 13 to 19 come into the Y for free till midnight. That's been a 26-year program. I'm proud of that program. It's a great program. Free. We offer a lot of services. We have this program called Livestrong. Livestrong is a national company organization that's committed to eradicating cancer. And so they partnered with a number of organizations, but the Y is one of those organizations, and they saw the Y as a great opportunity to give people who are working their way back to health to be at the Y, because the Y is a place where everyone is welcome, so a person does not feel out of place or sees people is a more comfortable environment. That's free to all people who are experiencing or in rehab for cancer and their families. That's free. To be able to do that, we have to raise money to help offer those services, and that's just a little of what we do. And again, that's not like a commercial, but that's something that's really important to the Y, is that we raise money to give people access to the Y. But the other reason why and I think almost as important, why we raise money, is because we want people to invest in the Y. We want people, like my job is to make you believe that the Y is critical to this community, that it's important to the youth, the families, the adults, because it's a healthy place for this community. I believe that. I tell people, I should be teaching a class in the university because I'm conducting the longest longitudinal study in the history. I see the impact of the Y. I see it. I see it over 34 years. I'm going to tell you a story. I told this to Tim. I love telling stories because then it captures what the Y is about. Next week is our kickoff for the annual campaign. And one program that I helped start is called the Noon Hoops Hall of Fame. Doesn't that sound good? Noon Hoops Hall of Fame. It started off, it was a noon basketball league right here down the street. And this became a community like you would not believe. Seriously, guys, business guys, running into the Y, taking their tie off, running in to get to the game because they wanted to play in the game. They're running into the Y. It was the great, oh, I loved it, man. It was big time. We made it the big time. Over 25 years, we had this noon basketball league. We created a Hall of Fame. Guys that were, just, it didn't even matter about talent, right? But just guys that were part of it, that were part of this community. We created a Hall of Fame. We have a T-shirt right here at the Swiss, March 25th. If you guys are into it, you can see a next induction into the Hall of Fame. Every year during March Madness, we've got an induction. So this year's candidate is a kid that I remember when he was 11 years old. And actually, we're breaking the rules. And again, this kid, we broke the rules the first time. We're breaking it again. He's into you have to be 40 to get into the Hall of Fame. I don't know who put, I think Ron McMahon put that criteria. So you got to earn it. You got to earn it. So this kid's 39. We're letting him in. But anyway, when he was 11, he showed up at our first late night in 1991. We wanted kids 13 to 19, just teenagers. And we had to draw the line, right? 11-year-olds with 20 or 18, it's just not good, right? We try to watch that. So kids have a chance to develop. They're not influenced in a negative way, and they can be with their peers as close as possible. Anyway, he kept showing up on Friday nights. And I was like, Anthony, what are you doing? No is the answer. So I drove him home, and I take him to his house, and I was like, oh, no one's living there. Nobody is living there. His mom, definitely a crack addict. No father he had siblings, younger kids, deplorable. You would not want to live in that, even if you were homeless. It was really bad. And my heart, I said, Anthony, you're coming to late night. And so we took Anthony in, and Anthony actually could hoop. He was 11 years old. He would school some of these guys. He was so quick, right? Anthony stayed with the Y, and I remember this, right? I'm at Tacoma Center, and he graduated high school. So here's the deal, right? You would have given him less than 5% chance of graduating high school. Less than 5%. Just couldn't get it. No home life, nothing. He graduated. He comes into the Y. I mean, he is on cloud 9. People hugging him. I'm crying. Everybody's crying. Anthony graduates high school. Lose track of him. I'm working now at the association office. Fast forward, number of years. I get a message on my answering machine, and this guy's yelling on the phone. I can't even hear or understand what he's saying. Oh, yeah, Charlie. That's all I heard, Charlie, right? And anyway, he's working for Catholic Community Services. Check this out. Advocate for families. He's an advocate for families. Anthony, I mean, you could get caught up in that. So here's a kid who, no chance, graduates college, advocate for family, gives $20 to the Y this year to help another kid have that opportunity. Now you talk about a story. I've heard that story hundreds of times in the Y. That's what the Y is about for me. That's what the Y is for this community. When I came here in 1983, I met a guy named Lloyd Silver. And Lloyd Silver died a couple years ago, and his son is the chair of the board now. It's a third generation. We hired his daughter. We have 3 generations. That's something you see all the time. 4 generations, right? You see people just being part of the Y. So Lisa says, I would be part of the Y. I never even used the Y. The campaign is to get people to believe that the Y is critical for this community, that that's what the Y is here for. And when I saw Lloyd Silver, he told a story, and this is when he's in his 80s. He's telling the story. No, at that time he was in his 50s. I think he died at 89. He tells a story about when he was 14 and he was a foster kid, and someone gave him a scholarship to go to Camp Seymour we have a camp, a resident camp. They sent him to camp for the summer, Rotary, right? It was a Rotary scholarship. Changed his life. And his whole life was to give back to the community, and his sons own that. That's what the why is, right? Generation to generation giving back so someone else can have this opportunity. That's what the why is about. Thanks, you guys. If you have any questions, that was my speech today. If you guys have any questions, anything I made sense, Darkan, let me have it, baby.
Can you talk about the why symbol, why it is that
Triangle?
there's the triangle and then there's the rest of the why?
John 17:21. So that's a great one. So the formula for the why, this is what I learned early on. The triangle that Darkan's talking about is mind, body, spirit. We talk about the whole person. So that's what's unique about the why, right? Our why is this is a university, and by the way, I will share this. We have students that receive communication. This is interesting, right? It's transparency here. You guys receive communication from us, our newsletter, we have a letter that I write called the President's Letter, but we put our mission statement on there, which says, we put Christian principles into practice, programs build mind, body, spirit for all, and can't do that. It's public funded university, right? So you can't add any reference to our mission statement. So we have to rethink that. Just a little side note, but we have Christian Foundation. The actual history of the why in 1844 in London, a guy named George Williams in London offered a Bible study for teenagers. Kids who were lost, kids who were searching for something. That's how the why started. It was a Bible study. So the commitment to Christian principles is very important in the why. It's a foundational piece. Our why is very important. We take that very seriously. There are YMCAs that don't take that aspect, that it's not that important to them, but for us it is. And I was drawn into the why through that. So that's a personal thing. But John 17:21 is that we all may be one. And so there is that Christian commitment, but it's the total body. Mind, body, spirit, so triangle. 3 parts of a person. Did that make sense, Darkan?
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Come on.
What keeps you up at night, Charlie?
Yeah, there's a few things that keep me up at night. So here's something that keeps me up. I was talking to Tim, Father Daly. A little story about Father Daly. So I called him Father Daly, and the minute I met him, because for some reason, like Father Daly, like the Chicago Daily, Mayor Daly, Father Daly. Anyway, I saw a show once, a movie, where the guy's Pat O'Brien. Nobody knows Pat O'Brien. Anyway, he's an actor. And in black and white movies. Anyway, his name was Father Daly, and he used to take care of the kids that were, tough kids. And anyway, I called him Father Daly. And people thought he was a priest, because I was calling him that. Hey, Father Daly, how you doing? This woman comes up to me once and says, man, are you sure? His language is terrible. It's a true story, man. She was like really upset because he was a Father Daly and his language was really bad. Sorry, Tim. Threw you under the bus there, man. I don't know where I was right then. What was I? Thanks, Thomas. So I have a different style of leadership from my predecessor. And I call it, and it's not that I call it read it, but I do try to lead from behind. It's very interesting to lead from behind, because that means you're trying to empower people and you're trying to get people to have initiative, but you can tell that can be scary, right? You're leading from behind, you're trusting that we're going in the same direction. And we're in a transition. I love that you said that. When we went at this conference, Tim had said, we're still in this transition. And we went from a very hardcore accountability, and we're still accountable, but it was top-driven. And I'm trying to lead from behind. And so trusting and allowing people. Yesterday was a tough day for me because I had 3 people make great decisions that weren't in alignment with me. And that's hard, man. And so like I go to bed and I wake up at 3 in the morning sometimes and I go, are we going the same way? Are we doing it right? I want to be committed to staff development. I want to do it the right way. I want to be successful, right? Because success is measured in people's lives, right? That's what's cool about working for a YMCA or nonprofit. Your success is about people's lives who are changed and transformed. But it keeps me up at night because there's a lot of responsibility and I don't want to screw it up. So I think about that.
You think the Y could get too big?
So it's a great question. In fact, that's another thing that keeps me up at night. What, are you in my head right now? So that's a very good point because we grew so big. I mean that. We have facilities that have 20,000 people. That's a city. 20,000 people in a branch. We have a few of them. We don't just have one. So to offer a service, to be people-driven and try to serve that many people is hard, man. It's hard. You can run around all day trying to serve and touch people's lives. And I think it can get overwhelming for staff. I think it can be hard because there's a lot, it's just coming at you. But I love it, right? But it is a challenge, and I think about that. Person I worked with for many years used to say, grow big, but stay small, right? Grow big and stay small. I used to use this as an example. There was a restaurant on 6th Avenue, Lorenzo's. Do you remember Lorenzo's? Do you remember, Julie? Anyway, great Italian food, right? 6th Avenue. But they decided to go big. They built another floor. They started microwaving their food because they couldn't keep up with the demand. It's closed. People don't like to have their food microwaved, right? Anyway, they couldn't make the transition because they started getting a lot of people and they lost that family feel. It's tough. So I think about things like that. Anything else? Go ahead, Darkhan, go for it, baby.
So, yesterday I actually met
Phil Carter.
and Blake Bolton.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. We love Blake. We love Blake. Man.
One thing that I realized, that you guys have this mutual thing about yourselves. This mutual fire, or whatever you want to call it, passion maybe. And both of those people, and you have been in
34.
years.
Yeah.
And they've been there around.
Phil's right around there, 33.
So how do you not get bored of something for 30 years? How do you keep going day after day, even though those days are full of struggle and
Yeah,
hardship?
great question, great. First of all, I absolutely love what I do. This is not a job, it's a calling. It is. And I do believe that people who work in the Y nonprofit, it's a calling. So it's a higher calling. Like I feel, one, I just want to serve. I want to make a difference. Phil Carter is my hero, though. So yesterday I was having a bad day. I called Phil, bam, changed like that. Phil Carter made my day. So we play off each other. We work together for a long time, and we have a blast. So Phil Carter was a 2-time captain for Notre Dame. He was a running back. He was in Don James, who was the coach of Huskies, legendary coach. He had a paragraph in his book, or more than a paragraph, that said Phil was the guy who got away. They wanted to keep Phil in the Northwest, but he went to Notre Dame. So he is a top-level athlete. I never saw a guy get better because he was great in the fourth quarter. He would come, when everyone started to tire, go ahead, you just take off, man, don't worry about it. Anyway, he would get tired. So he's tireless. And I love Phil and love that about him. But I love what I do, Darkhan. There is I don't want to stop either. I want to keep going because I love it. Well, Thomas, what do you say?
Couple more questions.
Couple more if you got one.
I mean, how is the Y organization as a whole will sustain its competitive edge? Your mic just dropped, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that, Zach. You'll be able to roll with that, right? The competitive edge. So that is true. So let me give you an example. We have like really beautiful facilities. It's our calling card, right? People want to come into a beautiful facility. We just had a great discussion yesterday at the board meeting. One of our buildings this year, we call it the Mothership, is 40 years old this year. It's on the street, it's the Y on Morgan Street. And we're talking about if we want to be relevant, if we want to be competitive, we have to consider building a new one. Because a remodel may not be able to be the answer. And you know what? Those are questions that you have to ask. How do you stay relevant programmatically? We invest millions of dollars in our staff to train, to go see out in the world what else is being offered. You have to be competitive. We still are a business. We still serve, and there are customers that come in. Because this is what's unique about the Y too. People walk in expecting to lose weight, get in shape, train for a triathlon. These guys are training for a triathlon. They come in for that, but they really come in for community, for us to connect them, to build, to build the person. So they come in for a reason, but we have to deliver on those reasons. So they got to come in and see a great facility, see great equipment, have great programs, great service. But then in the mid, we deal with the total body, the total person, mind, body, spirit. So competitive is critical. Avery, go ahead.
How do you find, I know you're talking about on the bus and going off the bus, how do you find the kind of employees or partners to know that, that they're going to be on the bus for whatever length of time that, is right for them? How do you find that person that has the kind of passion?
That's great. It's great. So I said early on, I think most of the people, if not all the people who work there, do want to make a difference in someone's life. They want to make, so they come there knowing that the why is about that. The development piece is our job too. We talk about development plans and staff. We haven't done great at that in the past. That's our greater commitment. So we have to make sure staff are moving forward in their career so that they can have a career at the Y, or at least develop for the next career, wherever else they're going. We haven't done great at that. We have to do better. So they come in probably thinking they know what we do, or they know exactly what they want to do in their lives. People who come in not sure what they want and maybe thinking about it, maybe not as high a success rate with them, because I think people have to come in wanting to be servants. They want to know that they're going to make a difference in someone's life. So it's not a perfect formula, but I think it's part of my job to excite people to be at the Y. I want them to be passionate, but they have to also be the right kind of person, like you're saying, to be a servant. So I don't know if that's a perfect answer, but Tim.
Hey, Charlie, could you speak for just a moment? We can't leave the university without talking about the collaboration between the two associations.
That's why he's a board member. He's smart. Yeah. So, unique relationship. Hey, thanks, you guys. It was awesome, Anthony. 2005, a guy that I worked with, who now is the CEO of Wichita Y, was the exec here at this branch at Tacoma Center, and was developing a relationship with the people at the university, because he had heard they were looking at building a facility, student center, hub. They knew they wanted to build it, and so Ron McMahon started coming to those meetings, because he knew that if it wasn't the Y, it would be someone else. They were going to contract outsource it. So he was smart, and he started being involved in those conversations. And then at that time, the chancellor, Deborah Friedman, who has passed away, I think 2 years ago, she was awesome, but she started touring some of our branches and saying, yeah, this is good. So the partnership developed over years. And then when the readiness was there, when they started getting ready to build, they approached us and said, would you be interested in being a partner? And so what we do is we manage that. So we hire the staff, we deliver the programs, we operate the branch, but it's always according to what the university wants. So it's their operation, but we manage it. And it's a great partnership. We attend board meetings, we listen to the students give us the good and the bad, the brutal facts, but we try to deliver. And from what I understand at this point, all's good in the world of the partnership. Yes?
My question for you is for the YMCA community. As you guys are developing this plan to be competitive, do you guys still keep in mind the needs of the community?
Absolutely.
For example, Morgan Family Gym is located just right by youth shelter, Beacon Hill Center, temporary youth shelter. Is there any plans or talks of maybe incorporating something that isn't just competitive, but inclusive to help?
Oh, great point. What's your name?
Joseph.
Joseph, great one. So I just met with a group. It's the name of this group. They didn't tell me their name, or they did. I forgot it. But it's a homeless. They deal with homeless teens from abused situations, and it's a small operation. It's out at Lakewood, and we're doing a cooperation with them. These kids are members now. They're members, and so they come in. They have someone come with them, but they get to use the Y regularly. We had an operation in the city. We partnered with the city, and we offered showers for the youth teens that used to be on right above the Y on, I think, Tacoma Avenue. Homeless. The homeless issue is very important to me. It's important to the community, so we're looking to partner on that. So I would say we're doing that, and we will continue to do that. So a great point. We won't have residents. I think the Y left residents years and years ago, because that's a whole different ballgame. Some Ys do it. Go ahead.
More along the lines of like temporary shelter during times of inclement weather or
Yeah, we haven't gone there. That part, so that would be, in my mind, Joseph, a great opportunity for a collaboration. So this one was a collaboration with the city. They offered the housing, and we offered the showers and opportunity to work out. So something like that. But I'll tell you, I like the thinking. So if we build that, metropolitan parks, the city, maybe we can line up with something, because collaboration is where it's at. We can't do everything, but we can line up with what we can do, right? I like that, Joseph. Is that it, Thomas? People are getting ready to leave. They've had enough. Thanks, you guys. Thank you. Thanks, man.